Shachi Putram Matra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Murupurim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Purutam Bhatosmi Nindantam Pulakotkarena Vilasatni Paprasuna Chavin Prodvikritya Bhujadvayam Hari Hari Tyuchaivadantam Muho Nrityantam Galadasrunirjarachayai Sinchantam Urvitalam Gayantam Nijapashadaih Parivritam Gaurameva Stamaha Jayati Jayati Radha Prema Sarai Ragadha Jayati Jayati Krishna Statra Saswada Trishna Jayati Jayati Vrindam Tatsakinam Dvayaikyam Jayati Jayati Vrindakananam Tatsvadam Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath E Choy Gosaira Kori Charana Bandhan Jaha Hoite Vignana Parishtan Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Yes, in Rishikesh, I would always turn the lights off, just have a candle. I would enjoy that. So we're still reading. Yesterday we read one sentence, I think, so we're not too out of. You didn't miss very much.
No, I'm listening. I cannot miss you. Sorry, yesterday.
Jo Brahma Rudra Shuka Narada Bhishma Mukyai Alakshito na Sahasa Purushasya Tasya Sadyo Vashikarana Churna Mananta Shaktin Sri Radhika Charanarenum Manusmarami.
Wow.
So far we were reading about the limitations, of course, of Aishwarya Bhav and of Vaidhi Bhakti in getting to Radha. So he said, this we read the other day, A iti tapo rupa bhaktya pradurbhavitopi braja bhaktavat neti madhuryotkarshena yatharthyena cha iti artha. Okay, so he says here that by performing bhakti that has the nature of tapasya or of austerities, you may be able to forcibly make God appear to you in some way. Just like the gods would make, they're performing austerities and making the gods appear to them. Like Dhruva, for instance. So Dhruva was performing, he was doing tapomoya bhakti. He was tapo rupa bhaktya. Pradurbhavita, so pradurbhavita indicates that it was like forcing. So when Dhruva was performing austerities and making the planets shake in their orbits, and so the gods went to Vishnu and asked him to please do something about this. And so he was obliged to come in order to preserve the universal order. And then when he did, so then it says that Vraja, but he may be able to achieve it, and he did that right here in Braja, in Madhuvan. But Braja Bhaktavat Niti. It's not going to happen the way that he's not going to get Krishna the way the devotees of Vrindavan get him. That's just not going to happen. And that shows two things. Well, for instance, that's going to show that the superiority of Madhurya, and also the trueness of the form. We've been talking that Radharani's Krishna is the real Krishna. So you don't get the real Krishna if you try by some means, by some tapasya or anything like that, to oblige Krishna to respond to you. Then you're not going to get the real Krishna. And that shows the superiority of Madhurya. So now he gives another meaning. He says that actually there's nothing you can do, that the word a here, which is given a lakshito, means independently. You cannot get Krishna independently in any way.
Without Radhika.
Well, here he's saying that Dainyena, well, he's going on here. Dainyena kripayacha lakshata eva. So he says either through dainya, through this humility. If it's not, humility is not there. So if you think that you're proud of your austerities and proud of your bhakti and so on, then you're never going to get Krishna because he's only attainable by mercy. But then he goes on and says lakshata eveti tadapi yatha bhavanam eva na sarvangshena. So even then, you're still only going to get Krishna by according to your particular bhavana, according to your particular mood, or according to your particular concept, according to your particular understanding, and not the complete Krishna. So
bhav is also one of the name of Radhika, feeling. Without bhav, how we will know the prema?
Well, here it says, it's not saying bhavana, it says bhavanam, yatha bhavanam. So meaning that everyone, yad dhya tamurugaya vibhavayanti tad vapuh pranayase sadanugrahaya. So in the Bhagavatam it says that whatever particular form you happen to meditate on, that's the form that will appear. That's the form that will appear. But at the same time, because if you are, the thing is this, that if you are engaged in a particular kind of devotion or a particular kind of sadhana, that sadhana itself reflects the kind of goal that you're trying to achieve. Sadhane je dhana chai siddha dehi taha pai. Pakka pakka matra evicha. So Sadhile says, apakka sadhana gati.
Prema?
So if you have I'm feeling very hot here just for a second. I come cycling here and I'm wearing a sweater. Is it starting to get cold?
AC? AC?
No. Everybody else, just because I'm overheated from cycling. Okay. No, Shita Bhavanam, so whatever the nature of your sadhana, that's what you're going to get. You know, sadhane je dhan chai siddha dehita pai. Pakwa matre vichar. It's only a question of it's just a question of maturity. That you're going to get, what you're contemplating. So if you don't understand the sambandha, it's like Narottam also says, sambandha janiya bhaje krishna tare nahi tyaje. So you have to know the particular kind of sambandha, the particular kind of relationship that you're in with Krishna, and then your avideya, your practice, will be in accordance with your concept. But if your concept is still mixed with Aishwarya, then you're going to be following Vaidhi Bhakti.
Yeah.
And even if your Vaidhi Bhakti is mixed with Raganuga, because Jiva Goswami says in Bhakti Sandarbha that if your practice, he says that if you're not an adhikari, if you're not capable of following Raganuga Bhakti, then you should mix it with Vaidhi Bhakti. But so many people are advising that you should follow Vaidhi Bhakti, and they follow a practice that is Vaidhi Bhakti oriented. But Vaidhi Bhakti means Aishwarya. And as long as you're following Aishwarya, even if in name you're worshipping Radha and Krishna, if you're worshipping Radha and Krishna in Aishwarya, then you're not going to get the real Radha Krishna. This is what is being said. So yatha. If you're worshipping Radha and Krishna with Aishwarya Bhav, then you're thinking of Radha and Krishna as God. You won't be able to enter into that lila. You won't be able to enter into it because you're still keeping yourself apart. You're keeping yourself separate. Radha and Krishna lila. This is the Siddhanta of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, is actually achintya bheda bhed. To madhurya means that you become fully at one with Radha and Krishna. Even though you're a separate body, separate consciousness, a separate individual, you're still one with Radha and Krishna. You don't consider you don't think of Radha and Krishna as God. You think of Krishna as Nanda Nandan. You think of Radharani as Rishabhanu Nandini, and you are part of that scenario. So that's the idea that yatha bhavanam natu sarvangshena. Let's see, the Hindi says here, wohi bhavna ke anusar hi na ki sarvangsha roop se.
Half way nahi hum chalega. Full heart.
So now he goes on. So now he's going to explain the word tasya purushasya. So this is what we had explained so far was the first part of the verse, which says, Yo Brahma Rudra Shuka Narada Bhishma Mukhyair Alakshito Nasahasa. So that Krishna is not quickly or not easily or not fully achieved or even lakshita. He's not even, you don't even really, lakshya means aim. Yeah? So if when you aim at something, that's called your lakshya. So alakshito, if he says that you can't even get a bead. You know, like when you're shooting at something, you want to get an aim. You don't actually see the target properly. Then how are you going to hit the target? That's the same. So if you don't see the target properly, then you're not going to hit it. So he's saying that these guys don't even see the target. They're not even seeing Krishna as the target. So how can they get Krishna?
Brahma, Narada, Shiva.
He says Brahma, Rudra, Shuka, Narada, Bhishma. Mukhya. Because that means that there's others also. Mukhya means that Mukhya means etc. here. Means these are. He says these are the Mukhya means that these are the head of the line. So if there's a line, they go to the front of the line. So if they go to the front of the line and they don't get it, if they get turned away, then the ones who are behind in the line, they're not going to get it either.
I have one doubt.
Go ahead, Maharaj.
So why we say that we are Brahma, our
Sampradaya.
Sampradaya.
Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Saraswata.
Yeah, Saraswata, this and that. Why we say
Well, this right away, this is you know, this ये तो वैदिक विचार से आता है.
And then you answer.
No, because we, the thing is, what does it say? It says the shloka says what? The shloka says that mantra vihina ye, what is it? Sampradaya vihina ye mantrastu nishphala mata. Now, first of all, I want to say that this verse is prakshipta. This verse, although, this particular line might not be, but the Padma Purana, then the following lines, that say that there are for the Ateva Kalo Yuge Chatwara Sampradayana. This verse is not found in any edition of Padma Purana. And let me assure you, Padma Purana is a very big book. It's got volumes and volumes, And the Padma Purana has, thousands and thousands of verses. And this is not one of them.
What?
That it says that sampradaya vihina ye mantras te nishphalamata, and then it goes on. I think maybe the first line is in Padma Purana, but the rest is not. I know because I searched for it. With my electronic edition of Padma Purana, which is megabytes and megabytes.
Okay, explain now.
Anyway, so that's Sampradaya Vihina Ye. So he's saying, so what is that? This is a historical thing. So now these kinds of questions can only be answered by historical research. Because if this verse, you see when you see a verse, then you automatically think this verse is an eternal verse, that it's been in the Shastras for 5,000 years. This is the kind of propaganda that we get. But in actual historical fact, this verse doesn't appear until the 18th century. So you're talking about something that comes in the end of the 18th century. And the 18th century, the reason for that was because Govinda Dev was going to Jaipur, and the Brahmins in Jaipur were saying that these Gaudiyas, they don't have a sampradaya, so how can they worship the deity? And this was coming from the Ramanuja and Nimbarka sampradaya, and so on. So then the Gaudiyas, made this connection to the Madhva Sampradaya.
Yes, but what the verse say exactly?
What this verse says?
Yeah.
The verse says that without Sampradaya, that no mantra can work. Okay? And so then it says that after that, it says that in the Kali Yuga there are 4 Sampradayas. And these 4 Sampradayas are the Sri Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, Brahma Sampradaya, and Sanatnadi Sampradaya. Okay? So then it goes on to say that Sri chose Ramanuja, that Brahma chose Madhva, that Sanakadi chose Nimbarka, and that Rudra chose Vishnu Swami. So this is what the verse states.
Yes.
So now this verse is found where? This verse is found in Baladev Vidyabhushan's Prameya Ratnavali. It's found in a number of other texts also, but in each one of these texts, this is what is called prakshipta. Prakshipta means it's interpolated.
Yeah. Okay.
It's an interpolated verse. It's been interpolated. This is happening all the time. You see, many people from the time. Madhvacharya himself was a master of interpolation. He would take verses and make them up and then say that they come from some such and such a scripture. I mean, I don't like, this is, from the very beginning, Madhvacharya was criticized in his, because he, and then, I don't really can't explain it because we were talking about this kind of thing yesterday in the class. You weren't here, but we were talking about the problems that come with the falsification of history. And what we have, when we have the falsification of history, then what do we do now? Especially what do we do if we see that somebody in our own sampradaya has falsified some history? Then we find that situation. If my own guru, for instance, if I catch my own guru making a lie, then what is my situation? Like I wrote an article, I got into big trouble. I lost the job because I wrote an article about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur ascribed authorship to Prabodhananda Saraswati of his Navadvip Shatakam, and of he had written this Chaitanya Upanishad, and then a third book was Prema Vivarta. So I made the claim, and I showed the evidence for why these books were not written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Because it's quite clear from the language and so on. You can fairly, if you look at Prema Vivarta, for instance. And even Sridhar Swami, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Swami accepted this. I heard later on, Tripurari Maharaj told me that Sridhar Maharaj himself had said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur did not write these books. So
Why not write?
He didn't. There's 3 books. So the 3 books are Chaitanya Upanishad, then there's Prema Vivarta, and then there's Navadvip Shatakam. So Navadvip Shatakam is published by the Gaudiya Math and says it's written by Prabodhananda Saraswati. But Prabodhananda Saraswati, and what it is basically, it takes verses from Vrindavan and Mahimamrita, Vrindavan and Mahimamrita, and then it changes a few words and makes it into Navadvip Mahima. And then there are other verses also that are original. But those verses were not written by Prabodhananda Saraswati. They were written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself. So then he says, maybe he was offering respect, maybe we can explain. But the fact is that it's fairly clear that that's what he did. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is my own Param Gurudev. I don't have any interest in blackening his name. It doesn't reflect well on me if I blacken his name. So what is it going to gain me? I can either do two, or I can either reject him and say that he was lying and that he was making up something up, or I can find some excuse for him, So, or I can forgive him. That's also possible. So I think, I wrote an article about this and went through all the different options. What do you do with a guru who has said something that you don't agree with? And in actual fact, many people are in that situation. We find even just the other day on Facebook, there was one group, and they kicked somebody out of the group because he was saying bad things about Prabhupada, right? Very, very familiar scenario. And what to do if the guru says something now? So Prabhupada said something about women's brain sizes, or something like this, So for these things are become very troublesome, and people become very worried that because of it, that everything is very, very bad, and that we have to renounce. Because why? Because we've received the propaganda that the guru is God himself, and that if we don't think of the guru as God himself, then automatically what's going to happen is we'll go to hell. Habo nirayagami. We'll go to hell if we think of the guru as a human being. Namartya buddhya suyeta sarvadeva mayo guru. So if you think of the guru as an ordinary human being, then you're going to go to then your spiritual life will be damaged. So now if you think that your guru has made a mistake, that's also is that thinking of your guru as an ordinary human being or not? Does that fall into the category of such a big offense that my spiritual life is completely ruined? How to deal with this? Because at the same time we're told to trust. We're told to trust our own instinct and told to trust our own intuition as well. I mean, you may think that we're being told the opposite, but in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling us, that if you're wholeheartedly engaged in bhajan, bhajatam priti purvakam, that dadami buddhi yogam tam. So Krishna says, I give it dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam puyanti te. Tesham evanukampartham aham ajnana jangtamaha nashayami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhasvata. So there, Krishna is actually the whole Bhagavad Gita. I tell you, the whole Bhagavad Gita is probably not what you think it is. The Bhagavad Gita is telling you to use your own brain. It's basically what it is. It says you have a problem using your own brain. Arjuna didn't know what to do, and so he surrendered to Krishna and said, you tell me what to do. And so Krishna said, well look, I can tell you what to do, but what I'm really going to do is I'm going to tell you how to use your own brain. Because whenever you're in a particular situation, for instance, if you go out the door now, and you go and you stand at the front gate, and you say, am I going to go left or am I going to go right? Are you going to come running back in here and ask Sadhu Maharaj, do I go left or do I go right? You know, you can't, if you fall in love with are you going to every single time you have some problem, every time you have some little question in your mind, are you going to come to, call your guru on the phone and say, please give me the answer? You know, obviously we are independent and autonomous human beings. We have to know how to function in life as adults, and that means making your own decisions, right? So Krishna says, I'm going to teach you Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga means what? He says, Esha that Esha te bihita sankhe buddhir yoge tumam sunu. He says, I've told you about discriminating between matter and spirit, and now I'm going to tell you how to use your intelligence in action. So now this is what is the thing in the Bhagavad Gita, and you can show, the Bhagavad Gita is a description. If you look in the Upanishads, there's a verse in the Katha Upanishad which says that the body is a chariot, and that the soul the individual soul is a passenger in the chariot, and the horses are the senses, and the reins are the mind. All this is stated there. It's a metaphor for the body. And so in that metaphor, the driver of the chariot is the intelligence. So now everything, if we just place everything in Bhagavad Gita and think, who is driving this chariot? Yeah? This is the giver of intelligence. The giver of intelligence is driving this chariot. So the idea is what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, that is, if you know God, if you can look inside, if you go inside, and then you will find the intelligence within. And so it tells you, but not everybody can do that, because the brain is covered over by tamogun and by rajogun. So you don't hear them. I wrote this because I've seen everybody's talking on the telephone all the time. So I said on my Facebook status last night, I said, talk on the telephone to God. Use your japamala.
Very good.
So then on the somebody came along and put a contact. He says, I'm calling, but I'm not getting an answer. So I said, you're using an outside line. Don't use an outside line, use an inside line. Because the answer won't come from outside, the answer is coming from inside. So we use but before we can really hear, before our intelligence is purified enough, then that's why we go to the Guru and we take shelter of the Guru. We take the shelter of the Guru take shelter from the Guru in order to get connected. We take shelter from the Guru to get connected and to get oriented. To get properly oriented. Because you have to have an idea of where it is that you want to go. If I just gave the example of going to the gates and saying, do I turn left or do I turn right? Yes, indeed. If you know where you're going, if you're going to go to Loy Bazaar, then you go left. And if you're going to go to the ISKCON temple, you turn right. So you know according to where you're going. So if you get the orientation, right? You get the orientation, and then from then on, once you've got the orientation, then you keep on you start heading in the right direction. But at every step, you can't have, you may have